In a world increasingly fraught with geopolitical tensions, the role of U.S. policymakers has never been more crucial. Recent events have underscored this reality, particularly as Secretary of State Marco Rubio convenes discussions with leaders from the Eastern Caribbean and the Bahamas. This meeting, taking place amidst a backdrop of regional instability, highlights America's strategic interests in fostering cooperation and stability in the Caribbean region. On May 7, 2025, Secretary Rubio's meeting aimed to address pressing issues affecting the Eastern Caribbean and the Bahamas, including economic challenges exacerbated by climate change and the ongoing impacts of global political shifts. Our partnership with the Caribbean nations is vital not just for regional security but for the prosperity of the entire hemisphere, Rubio stated during the meeting. He emphasized the importance of collaborative efforts to tackle issues such as illicit trafficking and environmental sustainability, which are of increasing concern to both the U.S. and its Caribbean neighbors. The timing of this meeting is significant as it comes on the heels of heightened tensions in other parts of the world, particularly the escalating conflict between India and Pakistan. Observers note that the U.S. response to this situation is being closely monitored, with fears that a misstep could lead to disastrous consequences. As Tom Nichols, a staff writer at The Atlantic, pointed out in a recent article today, India and Pakistan are inching closer to a war that could have catastrophic implications for their region and the world. The potential for nuclear escalation poses a stark reminder of the stakes involved in U.S. foreign policy, particularly under the current administration. In light of these international crises, Rubio's proactive engagement with Caribbean leaders reflects a broader strategy aimed at reinforcing alliances in regions critical to U.S. interests. The Caribbean's proximity to the U.S. makes it a vital area for diplomatic and economic partnerships. In recent years, the region has faced numerous challenges, from natural disasters to economic instability, which have only been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. The Biden administration's approach appears to focus on strengthening these ties as part of a comprehensive foreign policy strategy that prioritizes stability and collaboration in the face of global uncertainty. Furthermore, the recent flight of a Venezuelan opposition team to the U.S. following a precise operation has added another layer of complexity to the regional landscape. As reported by The Washington Post, this incident illustrates the ongoing struggles within Venezuela and the implications for surrounding nations. Rubio noted that supporting opposition leaders fleeing oppressive regimes aligns with U.S. values and strategic interests, reinforcing the necessity of a unified front against authoritarianism in Latin America. As these developments unfold, the implications for U.S. foreign policy are profound. The administration faces the dual challenge of managing immediate crises while laying the groundwork for long-term stability. With the stakes higher than ever, it remains to be seen how effectively the U.S. can navigate these complex geopolitical waters. The coming months will likely reveal the efficacy of Secretary Rubio's diplomatic efforts and whether they can yield positive outcomes in both the Caribbean and beyond. As the world watches closely, the hope is that through careful diplomacy and strategic partnerships, the U.S. can contribute to a more stable and secure global landscape. In a landscape marked by political upheaval and military challenges, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's recent activities have drawn significant attention and scrutiny. Speaking at the Special Operations Forces Week 2025, Hegseth emphasized a commitment to revitalizing the U.S. military under President Trump's leadership, declaring, "America is back." However, his tenure has been marred by controversies and missteps that have raised questions about his leadership effectiveness and strategic direction. Hegseth's keynote address underscored the administration's goals, including a focus on cutting military personnel and reshaping defense policy to better address modern threats. In a bid to streamline the military, Hegseth announced plans to reduce the number of senior generals and admirals by at least 20%. This move aims to eliminate redundancy within the military structure, a concept that has garnered support from critics of overblown military bureaucracy. "We shouldn't have any more than we need," noted Greg Williams from the Project on Government Oversight, reinforcing the need for efficiency in military ranks. However, the lack of detailed timelines and methodologies accompanying Hegseth's directives has raised eyebrows, with some lawmakers expressing skepticism about the implications of such cuts. Simultaneously, Hegseth has faced backlash over his management style, particularly regarding the controversial use of encrypted messaging app Signal. Reports reveal that he engaged in discussions about sensitive military operations, including directives that potentially compromised information security. Such revelations have led to scrutiny from both political rivals and defense analysts, with critics warning that Hegseth's communication practices could jeopardize national security. The recent revelation that Hegseth ordered a temporary halt on military aid flights to Ukraine without informing President Trump has further complicated his position. This decision, made amidst a backdrop of fluctuating U.S. support for Ukraine, bewildered both allies and domestic officials. The White House defended Hegseth's actions, framing them as reflective of the administration's ongoing negotiations regarding the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Yet the incident highlights the precarious balance of military and political strategy in an era where clear communication is paramount. As Hegseth grapples with these challenges, he also faces a volatile situation in the Middle East, notably concerning operations against Houthi militants. A series of incidents involving U.S. Navy aircraft has raised concerns about the operational readiness and safety of military engagements, further complicating Hegseth's leadership narrative. Critics argue that his focus on restructuring the military may be overshadowed by these pressing issues, and some fear that his rapid changes could lead to instability within the armed forces. Despite these challenges, Hegseth continues to project confidence in his role, asserting that he is a change agent within the Department of Defense. His vision includes a transformation of the Army to enhance homeland defense capabilities and deter potential threats from nations like China. However, critics remain skeptical. Senator Jack Reed has voiced concerns that Hegseth's personnel changes may be driven more by political motivations than by strategic necessity, potentially undermining military effectiveness. Looking ahead, Hegseth's path remains uncertain as he navigates a complex web of military, political, and operational challenges. His ability to implement meaningful reform while maintaining the integrity and effectiveness of the military will be critical in the coming months. As the geopolitical landscape continues to evolve, the spotlight will undoubtedly remain on Hegseth, with both allies and adversaries watching closely to see if he can indeed deliver on his promises of transformation and efficiency within the Pentagon. In a little over 3 months since being appointed the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has initiated a series of controversial changes that are reshaping the landscape of public health in America. His tenure has not only sparked significant debate but also raised concerns among health professionals who fear the repercussions of his actions on vaccine policy and public health safety. Kennedy, a well-known figure in the anti-vaccine movement, has begun to prioritize an agenda that many experts warn could undermine decades of public health progress. One of his most contentious proposals involves potentially removing the COVID-19 vaccine from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's CDC childhood immunization schedule. During a recent interview, he claimed that the vaccine posed a profound risk to children, a statement met with immediate backlash from health authorities who emphasized that the benefits of vaccination far outweigh the risks. According to data, serious side effects from the COVID-19 vaccine are rare, and COVID-19 itself has been a leading cause of hospitalization and death among children. Michael Osterholm, director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota, expressed concern over Kennedy's approach. He highlighted that the dubious framing of the vaccine's necessity for children ignores the realities of the pandemic, where COVID-19 has tragically recorded numerous pediatric deaths, including healthy children. He cautioned that the rhetoric used by Kennedy could lead to decreased vaccination rates, putting children at risk for severe illness. The vaccines are very safe in kids, Osterholm stated, reinforcing the consensus among health experts about the importance of vaccination. Kennedy's comments have not only raised eyebrows but have also been labeled as misinformation, with health professionals actively working to counteract the narrative. Sean O'Leary, an associate professor of pediatrics at the University of Colorado, underscored the importance of maintaining a universal recommendation for COVID-19 vaccinations in younger children, particularly as they are still at risk for severe illness. The risk of COVID-19 to children is not no risk, he argued, pointing out that COVID-19 has been among the top 10 causes of death for children during the pandemic. Moreover, Kennedy's push for a re-evaluation of vaccine trials, insisting that they require additional testing against placebos, has drawn criticism for being impractical and potentially unethical. This demand could lead to delays in vaccine availability, further complicating public health responses to emerging diseases. Critics argue that such changes could reverse progress made in eradicating diseases like measles, which had seen a resurgence partly due to declining vaccination rates. In a related development, Kennedy recently made headlines for comments he made about chemtrails during a town hall meeting, suggesting that the military was involved in spraying harmful substances in the atmosphere. This statement has been met with skepticism and condemnation, as it reflects a broader pattern of conspiracy rhetoric that lacks credible evidence. Experts in atmospheric science have dismissed these claims, noting that what Kennedy refers to as chemtrails are simply condensation trails produced by aircraft. As Kennedy continues to navigate the complexities of his role, the implications of his policies on public health remain uncertain. Health experts are urging a return to evidence-based practices in communication to ensure that public trust in vaccines and health systems is maintained. The potential removal of the COVID-19 vaccine from the childhood schedule, alongside the spread of misinformation, could have lasting consequences for the health of future generations. Looking ahead, it is crucial for health authorities, policymakers, and the public to engage in informed discussions about vaccination and public health strategies. As the landscape evolves, the need for clear factual communication will be imperative in combating misinformation and ensuring the safety and well-being of communities across the nation. The dialogue surrounding vaccine policy and public health interventions will undoubtedly continue, emphasizing the importance of science and consensus in addressing the challenges that lie ahead. In a significant move against the ongoing opioid crisis, Attorney General Pamela Bondi, alongside the Drug Enforcement Administration (DEA) and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of New Mexico, announced the results of an extensive week-long enforcement operation that targeted one of the largest drug trafficking organizations in the United States. This operation focused on dismantling a network primarily responsible for flooding communities with fentanyl and other illicit narcotics, marking a noteworthy achievement in the fight against drug-related crime. The operation, which culminated in numerous arrests and the seizure of substantial quantities of fentanyl and other dangerous substances, underscores the escalating urgency of addressing the opioid epidemic that continues to devastate communities across the nation. We are committed to ensuring that those who spread this poison are held accountable, Bondi stated during the announcement. The DEA's involvement highlights the collaborative effort among federal, state, and local authorities to combat drug trafficking, which has seen a dramatic increase in recent years. As law enforcement agencies grapple with the staggering rise in opioid-related deaths, data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC) reveals a sobering trend. Drug overdose deaths involving synthetic opioids, particularly fentanyl, have surged alarmingly. This has prompted increased vigilance and concerted action from agencies like the DEA, which is actively working to disrupt the supply chains of these dangerous substances. In a related political landscape, Bondi is facing scrutiny from House Democrats who are urging her to preserve the Community Relations Service (CRS), a civil rights-era program designed to address racial tensions and promote community harmony. Concerns have arisen following reports that the Justice Department may be considering dissolving the CRS, which has played a crucial role in mediating conflicts and preventing civil unrest. We strongly urge you to abandon any plans of dissolving the work of the Community Relations Service, the lawmakers stated in a letter addressed to Bondi, emphasizing its importance in maintaining public safety and social stability. The CRS has historically been involved in high-profile incidents such as the aftermath of the police shooting of a black man in Akron, Ohio, and the unrest following the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Former CRS Regional Director Ron Wakabayashi articulated the program's vital role, stating that it acts to find and stop brush fires before they became forest fires. The future of the CRS remains uncertain as discussions within the Justice Department continue. In another development, Bondi is also addressing the contentious issues surrounding the release of files related to the late Jeffrey Epstein. Amid allegations regarding missing documents, Bondi reassured the public that the FBI is diligently reviewing tens of thousands of videos linked to Epstein. The FBI is diligently going through that, she remarked amidst growing calls for transparency regarding Epstein's case, which has remained a point of significant public interest and debate. As the opioid crisis and issues of civil rights take center stage, the outcomes of these developments will likely reverberate through communities and political circles alike. The initiatives spearheaded by Bondi and the collaborative efforts of law enforcement agencies represent a pivotal moment in addressing both drug-related violence and racial tensions in the United States. With the opioid epidemic continuing to claim lives and the potential restructuring of civil rights programs on the horizon, the actions taken in the coming months will be critical in shaping the nation's approach to these pressing challenges. In a pivotal moment for international trade relations, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is set to engage in crucial negotiations with Chinese officials in Switzerland this weekend. This highly anticipated meeting comes amid escalating trade tensions that have left the global economy in a state of uncertainty. With the S&P 500 showing signs of recovery after a two-day slump, investors are looking closely at these discussions, hoping for a potential breakthrough. Bessent, who has emerged as the key figure in these negotiations, acknowledged that while the talks will focus on de-escalation, the prospect of immediate tariff relief remains unlikely. "We don't want to decouple with China. What we want is fair trade," Bessent stated in an interview, emphasizing the importance of maintaining trade relations despite the current tensions. The negotiations will also include U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer and China's Vice Premier Hao Lifeng, indicating the high-level nature of the discussions. The backdrop to these negotiations is a trade war that has intensified under President Trump, creating what Bessent described as the equivalent of an embargo between the two nations. As companies like Procter & Gamble and Mattel consider raising prices in response to tariffs, the pressure on the U.S. administration mounts. The broader implications of these tariffs are significant, with Bessent warning that achieving a comprehensive deal could take up to 3 years, a timeline that could test the patience of both businesses and consumers alike. Adding to the complexity of the situation, the Federal Reserve is poised to make a decision on interest rates, with expectations leaning towards maintaining the current rate. This decision comes at a time when inflation remains stubbornly high and the impacts of the trade war are expected to exacerbate economic volatility. The Fed's chair Jerome Powell has faced criticism from Trump for not aligning with the aggressive monetary policies of other central banks. As Powell prepares for a press conference, the intersection of trade policy and monetary policy will likely be a focal point of discussion. In the broader scope of the economic landscape, businesses are grappling with the ramifications of tariffs. A recent account from Thomas Johns, owner of National Roofing, highlighted the ripple effects tariffs have on operational costs and client spending behaviors. "Tariffs have never worked unless you want to punish your own population," Johns remarked, shedding light on the complex relationship between policy decisions and real-world business impacts. As the world watches the unfolding trade talks, the outcome remains uncertain. Bessent's approach appears to prioritize a long-term solution over immediate relief, suggesting that stakeholders may need to adjust their expectations. With both countries navigating economic challenges, China grappling with a slowing economy and the U.S. facing internal pressures from businesses and consumers, the stakes for this weekend's discussions could not be higher. Moving forward, the implications of these negotiations will likely extend beyond tariffs and trade barriers, influencing global economic stability and diplomatic relations. As both nations seek a path forward, the results of these talks could reshape the landscape of international trade in the years to come, making this a critical moment for stakeholders on both sides of the Pacific. Howard Lutnick, The newly appointed U.S. Secretary of Commerce has stirred controversy with his recent comments regarding Canada and trade policies. In remarks made ahead of a key meeting between President Donald Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, Lutnick labeled Canada a socialist regime that feeds off the United States. His statements reflect a broader skepticism toward trade relations with America's northern neighbor, fueling discussions about the future of U.S.-Canada economic ties. Lutnick, who took office in February 2025, is an influential figure in the business world, known for his role as chairman and CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, a major financial services firm. His wealth, estimated between $2 billion and $4 billion, is largely attributed to his ownership stake in the company, which he famously led through recovery after the September 11 attacks, a tragedy that claimed many of his colleagues. As Secretary of Commerce, he oversees a vast department that manages economic data, trade policy, and a range of initiatives from semiconductor manufacturing to broadband expansion. His stance on tariffs is particularly noteworthy. Lutnick is a staunch advocate for aggressive trade policies, arguing that tariffs are essential for protecting American industries and rectifying perceived imbalances in trade relationships. He has publicly stated that the new tariffs are here to stay, marking a significant shift in the U.S. approach to international trade. "The rest of the world has been ripping us off for all these many years," he asserted, emphasizing the need for the U.S. to protect ourselves. This populist rhetoric resonates with certain segments of the American public who feel left behind by globalization. However, Lutnick's comments about Canada have raised eyebrows. He has criticized Canadian retaliatory tariffs against U.S. steel and aluminum tariffs as tone deaf, and questioned why American companies are involved in manufacturing and production across the border. His tough rhetoric suggests that he sees Canada as exploiting the economic relationship, which could complicate ongoing negotiations aimed at reaching a more balanced trade agreement. In response, Canadian officials, including Prime Minister Carney, have taken a measured approach. Carney has rejected Lutnick's characterization of Canada while emphasizing the importance of maintaining a constructive dialogue. "America's threats to weaken us so that America can claim ownership will never, ever occur," he stated, highlighting a commitment to a fair partnership despite the tensions. Canadian officials described their recent discussions with Lutnick as constructive, though they do not foresee immediate changes to the U.S. administration's current tariff policies. The implications of Lutnick's comments extend beyond mere diplomacy. They signal a potential shift in the dynamics of North American trade. As the U.S. pushes for a more protectionist stance, Canadian industries may need to adapt to a new economic reality characterized by heightened tariffs and trade barriers. Lutnick's approach may resonate with American manufacturers but could lead to retaliatory measures from Canada, further straining relations. Looking ahead, the future of U.S.-Canada trade will likely hang on the delicate balance between protectionist policies advocated by Lutnick and the need for cooperative economic engagement. With both sides expressing a desire for dialogue, the next steps in this evolving narrative will be crucial for shaping the landscape of North American commerce. As Lutnick continues to implement Trump's aggressive trade agenda, all eyes will be on how these policies unfold and their impact on long-standing economic partnerships.